The road was empty, except for one shadow. Something, or someone, was lying by the closed shop ahead. He slowed down. Thunder cracked again. And in that brief light he saw her, a woman, heavy with pregnancy, drenched and motionless on the wet ground. For a moment, he froze. He looked around. People were passing, pretending not to see. He opened his door and ran toward her. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" he shouted, kneeling beside her. No response. Her pulse was faint, her skin cold like ice. Ignoring the whispers of bystanders, "Don't get involved, oh. You'll enter trouble." Ethan lifted her gently into his cab. As thunder roared above, he whispered, "Hold on, madam. Tonight, you won't die in the rain." The hospital gate stood tall and cold, its paint peeling under the angry rain. When Ethan's cab screeched to a stop, the security guard rushed out, holding a torch. "Hey, where's your police report?" the guard barked, frowning at the soaked figure in the back seat. Ethan's voice broke with urgency. "Police report? Please, she's dying. Open the gate." But the guard crossed his arms. "We don't admit strangers without police confirmation. You don't know what you're carrying." Lightning flashed again. Ethan's clothes were dripping, his hands trembling. "Sir, look at her. She's pregnant, she's unconscious. Please, I beg you." For a moment, silence, only the rain pounding on the metal gate. Then the guard sighed heavily and waved him in. "Drive fast. If anything happens, it's on you." Ethan rushed her inside. Nurses gasped when they saw the woman. A tall nurse in her late 40s hurried forward, her name tag read Mrs. Grace. Her eyes were sharp but kind. "You know this woman?" she asked quickly. Ethan shook his head. "No, ma'am. I just found her on the road." Mrs. Grace studied his face, soaked, tired, honest. She sighed. "All right. Bring her in. But you'll have to pay." Ethan emptied his pockets, a few crumpled notes and coins. "This is all I have. Please, help her. I'll find the rest later." Something in his eyes made Mrs. Grace pause. She nodded slowly. "Fine. We'll try." Hours passed. Ethan sat on a cold bench in the corridor, listening to the hum of rain on the roof. Every sound made him jump. Every second felt heavy. Then he heard two nurses whispering by the door. There was blood in that bag she was holding. And papers, something that looked like a birth certificate. Maybe that taxi man's part of it. Ethan froze. His chest tightened. What were they talking about? He stood up slowly, staring at the closed door of the ward, his mind swirling with fear and confusion. And then, before dawn broke, heavy boots echoed through the hallway. The police had arrived. The sound of boots grew louder, thud, 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 until two policemen appeared, rain dripping from their jackets. The younger one held a file, the older one's eyes scanned the corridor like a hawk searching for prey. "You," the older officer barked, pointing at Ethan. "You're the cab driver who brought that woman last night?" Ethan stood up quickly. "Yes, sir. I found her by the road, she was unconscious." "Shut up," the officer snapped. "You say you don't know her?" "No, sir." "Then why risk your life in a storm for a stranger?" Ethan blinked. "Because she needed help, sir. She was pregnant. I couldn't just leave her there." The officers exchanged glances. The younger one muttered, "That's what they all say." Before Ethan could speak again, the older officer motioned to his partner. "Cuff him." "What?" Ethan's voice cracked. "Sir, please, I did nothing wrong." The metal cuffs bit into his wrists. He felt his chest tighten as fear crawled up his spine. "Sir, please. I swear on my life, I just wanted to help her." The officer leaned close and whispered, "We'll see about that." They dragged him toward the police van outside. The rain hit his face like tiny stones. People in the waiting area stared, whispering, "That's him. The taxi driver that hurt that woman. This world is wicked." At the station, they threw him onto a metal chair. Questions came flying like bullets. "Where did you pick her? What was in the bag? Who sent you?" Ethan's answers didn't matter. To them, he was already guilty. 2 long days passed. No food, no sleep, just the same cold cell and the same hopeless silence. Then, on the 3rd morning, Mrs. Grace walked in. Her eyes looked tired but calm. "The woman, she's awake," she said softly. Ethan's heart skipped. "She's alive?" Mrs. Grace nodded. "Yes. And she's asking to see you." The officers unlocked his cell. When they brought him to her hospital room, his wrists still cuffed, he saw her, pale, trembling but alive. And when their eyes met, she whispered the words that silenced the entire room. "That's him. He saved me." The hospital room was silent except for the soft beeping of machines and the steady hum of rain outside. Ethan stood frozen by the door, his wrists still cuffed, his heart pounding like a drum. The woman on the bed, fragile, pale, eyes full of fear, looked at him. "That's him," she whispered. "He saved me." The officers looked at each other, confused. "You know him?" one asked. She shook her head weakly. "No, but if he hadn't stopped, I'd be dead." Mrs. Grace stepped forward. "Let her speak. She's been through enough." The officer reluctantly nodded. The woman took a deep breath. "My name is Isabella Reed," she began. I'm married to Charles Reed, the businessman in Eastmere City." At that name, even the officers paused. Everyone in the room had heard of him, one of the richest men in the country. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she continued. "I ran away, because my husband is not the man everyone thinks he is." Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly, listening. "I overheard him one night on the phone," Isabella said, her voice trembling. "He was talking about a ritual. He said our unborn baby would bring him wealth that would never end." The room went still. "I thought it was a joke," she continued, "until I saw the things he kept hidden. The symbols, the letters from a priest. That's when I knew I had to run." Her voice broke. "I escaped through the window that night. I've been running for 3 days, until the rain came. I collapsed on the road. Then I woke up here." One of the officers frowned. "Madam, that's a very serious accusation." "I know," she whispered, "but it's the truth. My baby, he wanted to use my baby." Mrs. Grace crossed her arms. "I believe her. I've seen fear before. This is real." The officer turned to Ethan, his tone softer now. "Looks like you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, young man." Ethan let out a shaky breath. "Sir, I just wanted to help. That's all." Isabella looked at him again, her voice barely audible. "You didn't just help me, you saved my soul." Outside, thunder rolled again, low and distant, as if the heavens were listening. Mrs. Grace muttered under her breath, "When evil sleeps beside you, even your dreams become dangerous." And before anyone could take another breath, a nurse rushed in shouting, "Doctor! She's going into labor." The room exploded into motion. Ethan was pushed aside, the officers ran for help, and Isabella screamed as pain ripped through her body. The rain outside grew louder, wild, merciless, and endless. The hospital corridor echoed with hurried footsteps. Doctors and nurses rushed past Ethan, pushing a stretcher into the delivery room. Isabella's screams tore through the noise like lightning cutting through the sky. Ethan stood outside, helpless. His soaked clothes clung to his skin, his hands shaking as he pressed them together in silent prayer. "Please God," he whispered. "Save her. Don't let her die after all this." Thunder rumbled above as the rain battered the windows. Minutes turned to hours. Every time the door opened, his heart jumped. The nurses' faces looked tense, unreadable. Then, finally, the door creaked open. Mrs. Grace stepped out slowly, her gloves stained, her face pale. She removed her mask and looked at Ethan. Her voice came out quiet, heavy, almost afraid to be heard. "She survived," she said. Ethan explorenced, relief washing over him. "Thank God, thank God." But then Mrs. Grace added softly, "The baby didn't." Silence. The sound of rain filled the hall again, louder, harsher. Ethan's body went numb. He leaned against the wall, his heart sinking like a stone into dark water. Inside, Isabella's sobs broke the stillness. "No, my baby. Please bring me my baby." The nurses tried to comfort her, but her cries only grew. Ethan sat on the bench, staring at the wet floor, unable to move. He had seen pain before, but this was different. It was the kind of sorrow that left scars on the soul. Hours passed before exhaustion dragged him into a light sleep. Then he heard it, two young nurses whispering near the door. "I heard the baby cry." "Don't talk nonsense. You know who took it." "Who?" "That woman from the foundation. The one Madame Florence sent. Keep quiet if you love your job." Ethan's eyes flew open. The words echoed in his mind like thunder. The baby cried. The baby was taken. He sat up straight, his heart pounding again. If what they said was true, then something evil was happening in that hospital. He looked toward Isabella's ward, his jaw tightening. "The rain might have stopped," he whispered, "but the storm is just beginning." The rain had slowed to a quiet drizzle, but Ethan's heart hadn't. He sat by the hospital window, staring into the darkness outside, the nurse's whispers replaying in his mind. The baby cried. The woman from the foundation took it. His palms were cold, but his thoughts burned like fire. He stood up, pacing. Mrs. Grace passed by and stopped when she saw him. "You haven't slept, Ethan," she said softly. He turned to her. "Ma, tell me the truth. Did Isabella's baby really die?" She looked away. "That's what the records say." "But what if the records are lies?" he pressed. "I heard the nurses talking. They said someone took the baby." Mrs. Grace's face went pale. "Ethan, lower your voice. You don't know who you're dealing with." "Then tell me," he whispered fiercely. "Who are they?" She sighed deeply, glancing around before speaking. "There are people in this city who see babies as business. They call it adoption, but it's not. It's a trade, rich clients, desperate mothers, fake documents. The Hope Spring Foundation runs it all. Madame Florence, she's behind it. But Ethan, please, don't get involved. They're powerful." Ethan's chest tightened. And if that baby was Isabella's? Mrs. Grace met his eyes. "Then pray you're wrong." But he couldn't rest. Not that night. When the hospital lights dimmed and silence fell, Ethan slipped out through the side door. He hid behind a fence near the gate, watching. Hours passed. Then, around midnight, headlights cut through the fog. A black SUV rolled in quietly. Two nurses stepped out. He recognized one of them from Isabella's ward. They carried something small, wrapped in a white blanket. Ethan's breath caught. He crouched lower, heart racing. The nurses handed the bundle to a woman in a red coat, who placed it gently inside the SUV. The car pulled away, moving slowly down the road. Ethan ran to his cab and followed from a distance. The streets were almost empty, puddles reflecting the faint moonlight. Finally, the SUV turned into a large compound surrounded by high walls. A bright sign stood by the gate. Hope Spring Foundation, every woman deserves a child. Ethan's jaw tightened. He reached for his old phone and snapped a quick picture before the car disappeared inside. The rain began again, soft but cold. He stared at the gate, whispering to himself. So this is where the truth is hiding. And deep down he knew, he had just stepped into a fight far bigger than himself. Morning came dull and gray. Ethan hadn't slept. The name Hope Spring Foundation echoed in his head like a chant he couldn't escape. He looked at the picture on his phone, the black SUV, the nurses, the white blanket. He knew what he had to do. By afternoon, he parked his taxi across the street from the compound. The place looked holy, clean walls, big banners of smiling women holding babies, and the words, "We bring hope to the hopeless." He scoffed under his breath. "Hope," he muttered. "For who?" A tall gatekeeper in uniform stood at the entrance, greeting visitors politely. Ethan noticed expensive cars coming in and out, women with designer handbags walking proudly into the reception hall. He decided to blend in. He grabbed a delivery crate from his cab and wore an old reflective jacket. With a deep breath, he walked toward the gate. "Delivery for Madame Florence," he said casually. The guard barely looked up. "Go through the back." Ethan's heart raced as the gate opened. He stepped in, pretending to look busy, his eyes scanning every corner. The air smelled of perfume and baby powder. The walls were painted pink and white. Pictures of smiling babies hung everywhere, their faces innocent, their joy eternal. Then one photo stopped him cold. A newborn wrapped in a blue blanket, the same patterned cloth he had seen in Isabella's hospital bag. His blood ran cold. He stepped closer, his eyes wide. No, it can't be. Just then, a shadow appeared behind him. Lost, are we? A calm, cold voice asked. Ethan turned slowly. Standing there was Madame Florence, elegant, graceful, her smile warm but her eyes sharp as glass. I was looking for the janitor, Ethan stammered. In my private hallway, she asked softly, her heels clicking on the marble floor. That's quite an unusual route. Before he could reply, she clapped her hands. 2 guards appeared instantly. Search him. Ethan tried to step back, but one guard grabbed his arm. They found the photo in his pocket, the one he had taken outside the gate. Madame Florence's smile vanished. So, she said slowly, you're the nosy taxi driver from the hospital. I warned them to keep strays away from my business. Ethan's voice rose with anger. Where's the baby? You stole that woman's child. Her expression hardened. You call it stealing. I call it balancing destiny. Poor women give birth to what rich women need. Everyone wins. Everyone except the mothers, Ethan spat. Madame Florence's eyes darkened. Take him to the police. Tell them he broke in to steal. The guards dragged him out roughly, rain pouring again as if the sky itself was angry. Ethan shouted through the storm, you'll pay for this. The truth will come out. Madame Florence watched calmly from the doorway, her voice cold as ice. Truth, she murmured. Such a fragile thing. And with that, the gate slammed shut. The cell was small and damp. A single bulb flickered weakly above Ethan's head. He sat on the cold floor, his clothes wet, his body aching from the guards' rough handling. All night, he replayed Madame Florence's words. Poor women give birth to what rich women need. He clenched his fists. Not Isabella. Not her baby. Morning came. A police officer opened the cell door. You've got a visitor, he said, his tone unusually polite. Ethan frowned. Visitor? Who? A tall man in a dark suit stepped in, holding a briefcase. His smile was calm but his eyes were sharp, the kind that saw more than people wanted to show. My name is Mr. Daniel Ethan, he said. I'm a lawyer. Ethan blinked. I don't know any lawyer. Daniel smiled faintly. You don't. But someone who believes in you does. He handed Ethan a note. It was from Mrs. Grace, the hospital nurse. It read, Don't lose hope. I've told him everything. Ethan's chest tightened with gratitude. She believed me. Daniel nodded. She risked her job to reach out. Tell me everything you saw. Ethan explained everything, the baby, the SUV, the photo, Madame Florence, and the guards. Daniel took notes quietly, his brow furrowing deeper with each detail. When Ethan finished, Daniel leaned back. What you've stumbled upon is big, he said quietly. Hope Spring is protected by powerful people, judges, police, even politicians. They hide behind charity, but their work is child trafficking at its finest. Ethan's voice broke. So what do we do? Isabella deserves to know the truth. Daniel leaned forward. We fight smart. Not loud. First, I'll get you out of here legally. Then we find proof that even Madame Florence can't deny. Proof. Ethan echoed. Yes, Daniel said, standing. If that baby was taken alive, there will be paperwork. A forged death certificate, maybe a fake adoption record. We'll need to get into their files, quietly. The cell door opened again. The officer looked nervous this time. Sir, he's free to go. Someone just posted bail. Ethan blinked in surprise. Who? The officer shrugged. Didn't say. Just left instructions and money. Daniel smiled. Looks like the universe is on your side, Mr. Ethan. As they walked out of the station, Ethan felt the wind on his face again, fresh, but heavy with warning. Daniel turned to him. We'll meet tonight. There's a man who used to work in Hope Springs record department. He might still have access. But Ethan. Ethan looked at him. If we take this step, there's no going back. You'll be marked. Ethan's jaw tightened. If it means finding that baby, I'm ready. Daniel nodded slowly. Then tonight, we enter the lion's den. The rain returned that night, soft at first, then steady, like the city itself was holding its breath. Ethan stood under the dim glow of a street lamp outside a small cafe in downtown Ravenbrook, waiting for Daniel. His jacket was thin, his mind restless. At exactly 9 p.m., Daniel's black sedan pulled up. He rolled down the window. "Get in," he said calmly. Inside the car sat another person, a young woman in her late 20s, with sharp eyes and a camera hanging from her neck. "This is Clara Briggs," Daniel introduced. "Investigative journalist. She's the only one brave or crazy enough to help us." Clara smirked. "I prefer brave." Ethan nodded nervously. "So what's the plan?" Daniel placed a folded map on the dashboard. Hope Spring Foundation's office keeps physical records in a storage wing behind the main building. They shut down cameras after 11 p.m. for generator maintenance. "That's our window." Clara added, "We just need to copy the files that match births from St. Mary's Hospital the night Isabella gave birth. If we get the wrong ones, we might not get a second chance." Ethan clenched his fists. "Then we'll get the right ones." By 11:10 p.m., the trio arrived near the Hope Spring compound. The place was quiet, too quiet. A tall fence surrounded the building, with a single security light flickering near the gate. Clara scanned the area with her camera's infrared lens. 2 guards at the front. 1 patrolling near the back fence. Daniel pulled out wire cutters. "We go in from behind." They crawled through the wet grass, their hearts pounding in rhythm with the rain. When the patrolling guard turned away, Daniel snipped the fence, and they slipped inside. The compound was eerily clean, white walls, trimmed flowers, everything too perfect. They could hear the hum of air conditioners, the distant sound of thunder. Clara whispered, "The record room's this way." They crept through a side corridor and stopped before a locked door marked Archives. Daniel picked the lock swiftly, and they entered. Rows upon rows of metal cabinets filled the room. Each was labeled with dates and hospital names. Ethan's eyes scanned frantically until he saw one that read, "St. Mary's Hospital, Neonatal July." He opened it. Inside were dozens of folders. One caught his eye, "Read Isabella." "There," he whispered. Clara flipped open the file, and her breath caught. A death certificate. But the doctor's signature was smudged, and the hospital stamp looked forged. Then something else, another document beneath it. An adoption certificate dated just 1 day later. The adoptive parent's name was blacked out with ink, but the seal read Hope Spring Foundation. Ethan's hands trembled. They sold her baby. Daniel took quick photos of everything. "We've got proof. Let's move before." A loud click echoed behind them. The door had just locked. Clara froze. "Someone's here." Footsteps approached. The door handle turned once, twice, then stopped. A woman's voice drifted through the crack. Smooth. Cold. Familiar. "Breaking into private property, Mr. Ethan? You never learn." Ethan's blood ran cold. "Madam Florence." Daniel grabbed his arm. "Back window now." They rushed to the small window at the corner. Daniel smashed it with his elbow, shards scattering on the floor. Clara climbed through first, then Ethan. As Daniel started to follow, a gunshot ripped through the silence, splintering the wall beside his head. Florence's voice came again, closer now. "You think you can destroy me with a few papers? You have no idea who owns me." Daniel dove through the window as another shot fired, the bullet grazing his sleeve. They landed in the mud outside and sprinted toward the fence. "Run!" Clara shouted. Behind them, guards poured out of the building, shouting and flashing lights. Bullets whizzed through the rain as they leapt over the fence and disappeared into the dark street. They didn't stop until they reached the car. Hearts pounding. Faces pale. Clothes soaked. Ethan turned to Daniel. "Did we get it?" Daniel held up the camera. The files were clearly visible on the screen. "Oh, we got it," he said breathlessly. "But now they'll be hunting us." Clara started the car, her hands shaking slightly. "Then we better make the world see it before they find us." As they sped off into the storm, Ethan looked out the window at the city lights fading behind them. He thought of Isabella, of the baby, of how one act of kindness had dragged him into a war he never asked for. But he knew one thing for sure, he wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. The night sky over Ravenbrook flashed with lightning, each strike splitting the darkness like an omen. Ethan sat in Daniel's small apartment, his eyes glued to the laptop screen as Clara uploaded the stolen files. The hum of the generator outside filled the tense silence. "This is it," Clara whispered. "Once this goes live, there's no going back." Daniel nodded grimly. "Make sure every file is backed up. If they take one source down, 3 others go up." Ethan's pulse raced. "Do you think people will believe it?" Clara gave him a tired smile. "They'll believe the truth when they see it written in their own system. The baby wasn't dead, it was sold. The documents prove everything." Just then, Daniel's phone buzzed. He picked up, listened, then his face turned pale. "That was Mrs. Grace," he said quietly. "The hospital's under investigation already. The police are questioning staff. She said they found Florence's name on several fake medical records." Ethan felt a flicker of hope, but it vanished as a loud crash echoed outside. Clara looked toward the window. What was that? Headlights flashed through the curtains. A black SUV had pulled up in front of the building. Ethan's chest tightened. "She found us." Daniel grabbed his coat. "We need to move. Now." Before they could pack the files, the door burst open. 2 masked men stormed in with guns drawn. "Don't move," one barked. Ethan froze, his heart slamming against his ribs. Clara clutched the laptop to her chest. The taller man pointed his gun at her. "Hand it over." But Daniel, thinking fast, snatched a flash drive from the laptop's port and slipped it into his shoe unnoticed. Then he raised his hands. All right, take it easy." The men grabbed the laptop, smashed the hard drives on the table, then pushed Daniel against the wall. "Florence sends her regards," one of them hissed before slamming Daniel's head into the shelf. Ethan charged forward in fury. "Leave him alone." A blow to his stomach sent him crashing to the floor. The men fled as quickly as they came, tires screeching into the rain. Silence. Only the sound of thunder filled the room. Ethan crawled toward Daniel, who was bleeding from his forehead but conscious. "You okay?" Daniel groaned. "They got the laptop, but not everything." He pulled off his shoe and handed Ethan the flash drive. This is enough." Clara wiped her tears and nodded. "Then we upload it again, from somewhere safe." By morning, they reached a small internet cafe on the outskirts of town. The flash drive trembled in Clara's hand as she inserted it into the computer. Daniel whispered, "The moment you hit send, the storm breaks for real." Clara took a deep breath and pressed upload. Within minutes, the files went live. Photos, forged certificates, secret hospital records, and even a list of names connected to Hope Spring: judges, politicians, doctors. The evidence spread like wildfire. News headlines exploded. Baby trafficking ring exposed in Ravenbrook. Hope Spring Foundation under investigation. The taxi driver who risked it all for the truth. Crowds began to protest outside the hospital. Reporters swarmed the streets. Madame Florence's face filled every screen in the city. And deep within her mansion, Florence watched in silence. Her perfect smile was gone. Her hands trembled as she turned off the TV. "They think this is over," she whispered, her voice low and cold. "But storms always come back stronger." Later that night, Ethan stood on the rooftop of his home, looking at the city lights flickering through the mist. His brother Michael and sister Amy were safe inside, finally asleep. He closed his eyes, letting the rain wash his face. For the first time in months, he felt peace, fragile but real. Then his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared. "You may have won the battle, Mr. Ethan. But the war has only begun." Attached was a photo, Isabella's baby, in someone else's arms. Ethan's blood ran cold. He looked out at the city once more, thunder rolling in the distance. The rain poured harder. And somewhere deep within the storm he knew. This was just the beginning.